I read about armies actually, and it turns out a lot of the best armies, if you, I can't remember the book, but there's a guy who studied some of the most successful armies that actually fought other armies, right? Um, and when he went into the way that those armies ran, they actually had that. They have they had a lot of decision making pushed into the organization to handle difficulties that came up. And actually, the more rigid armies, where you had all of these layers of management and somebody deciding this is how we do, were just really inefficient, right? Because in a battlefield, like shit happens. That's the best way to check your strategy, right? If you try to move right and your enemy sees you, they will try to move left in order to combat what they're doing. So, and that's very real time. So if somebody tells you go to this hill and set up your cannons, right? And then on the way to that hill, you basically you are told, here is the trucks you need, this is the road you're gonna use, this is all of this stuff, everything meticulously planned, right? Then you just know once they drive over there, all of a sudden one of the truck breaks down. There's a hole in the road. There's all of these problems. If you then have to feed that back and cannot make decision there, while you have an enemy moving around, it quickly becomes inefficient. So I actually think many of the successful armies do have quite distributed responsibilities. But then at the same time, the reason you don't have it fully is because when you're in the trenches, you can't have the overview. So that's why you have a command center, you have a general that gets input from a lot of people and can see, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, the enemies, and how they are moving. And the art is then to find the right way of providing context and guidance while leaving enough freedom for operational execution in the trenches, right? And I think it's just difficult. I don't think there's a single one right answer to that.
No, probably not. Well, again, it does have to come back to kind of the ethos, cultural ethos.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And as it's always been said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you want to incubate a entrepreneurial spirit within your organization and maintain that flair that a smaller organization has, you've got to going back to what you're saying, you've got to allow the authority of decision making to actually become lower down in the organization than higher up the organization, without there being negative consequences for someone doing something that others might see as being incongruent with what they would have done, because no one has said, well, you can't do it. So what's the latitude that you're allowed to have? And I think some of there was a book I read years ago called Juiced, I think. It's probably on my bookshelf. And it was very much about this customer-centric viewpoint.
Yeah.
And if you're genuinely doing the right thing for the customer, that's not somehow denigrating anything to do with the integrity of your business. And I think Best Buy in the US actually apparently have this kind of same construct, which is do the best thing for the customer without it being a compromise to the integrity, to the reputation, to the well-being of the company, then you're free to do it.